Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, an unprecedented decision.
Accordingly, respondent Maria Lourdes Sereno is ousted and excluded therefrom.
The Supreme Court removes its own Chief Justice.
Habang tumitindig tayo para sa matuwid, hindi tayo kailanman magiging talunan.
But Maria Lourdes Sereno vows to continue the fight and make an appeal.
Ang araw na ito, ang araw ng paglaban.
Can the justices change their minds, or is it the end of the line for Sereno? House Majority Member Congressman Rodito Albano and former Solicitor General Florin Hilbay join us live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. Before she was forced to step down, Sereno had repeatedly asked why Solicitor General Jose Calida filed a quo warranto petition against her. The former Chief Justice believes no less than President Rodrigo Duterte was behind her ouster because the Solicitor General directly answers to him. She argues that the President could have stopped the proceedings if he wanted to. Now that she's out of office, what are Sereno's options and what will she do? Let's go straight to the source of the story, former Solicitor General Florin Hilbay. Attorney, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
So, your basic thoughts on what happened Friday?
Okay, so you have an 8-6 majority ousting the Chief Justice. It now depends on the Chief Justice herself and other institutions, the public, to react. If no motion for reconsideration is filed, that decision will stand, and therefore she will remain ousted.
But they will file an MR. That's what they're saying.
I don't know yet. It should make sense for them to file a motion for reconsideration, given the closeness of the decision.
So it was an 8-6 decision without having to say who or what.
Right.
Did you hear anything from behind the scenes that one was supposed to go to the other side? Meron ka ba narinig na ganon?
Well, for very close cases, you always have that. You know, those kinds of speculations, and sometimes the justices they decide on the day of the voting itself,
Which was Friday.
That's right. That's right. So
Was there one person who really just decided that day among the justices?
Well, what I can say is that the voting was closer than I thought.
Did you think a 10-4 or a 9-5? That was more.
Yes, I think the speculation was that it was going to be more or less a clear majority for ouster. The fact that it's 8-6 means that the justice thought really hard about the decision, and that's what you have.
And I know that everything is a possibility in this world, but with an 8-6 vote, how, you know, the kind of process that went into deliberation, thinking about this, studying this, again, everything is possible, but in all likelihood, will someone change his or her
I'll
mind?
give you an example. The FASAP case was decided 20 years ago. The Supreme Court decided to reverse itself just a few weeks back. You know, that is a final decision, long decided 20 years ago, and then they decided to change their decision. There are cases where the Supreme Court has changed its mind more than 3 times in one particular case. And given the closeness of the voting here, I think there will be attempts to either retain the vote or change the vote. This is still a live case. Of course, given that some of the senators are speaking out, the public is very noisy about it, the legal profession is very active about it. I think
and there's also a number of people very happy with the decision.
Of course, this is a divided vote. You can imagine the partisans happy for the result. Right, but I think the Senate will have a very important role to play here, because it's really, well, one of the biggest victims of this decision is the Senate. You know, the fundamental constitutional question is who has the power to remove an impeachable public official. It's as simple as that, and it's the Senate. So if you're looking at three concentric circles, you have the circle for the president, the circle for the Congress, and then the circle for the judiciary. It's as if that circle for the judiciary has been enlarged and has eaten into
The
part of the
executive.
territory of the Senate.
Parang, one of the questions raised was, after this decision was, would the powers of Congress, not just the Senate of Congress, both houses of Congress,
Yes.
be diminished because of this granting of the quo warranto?
Well, effectively, the powers of both Congress and the judiciary are diminished because in this case, the members of the court have given an executive official, right, the power to inquire into the validity of their holding of that or of their appointment. How strange is that,
Yeah.
right? And the part of both the House and of the Senate, basically the Supreme Court has assumed for itself the power to terminate any proceeding, right, and judge, the outcome of that proceeding.
It would probably take a while to really discuss the merits of the case
Right.
because of so many opinions here by the justices themselves. However, this is a question I asked since Friday, which I think is common among everyone right now. Does this expose, as you mentioned a while ago, I'm not just talking about members of the Supreme Court, sir, members of trial courts,
Right.
Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court. Does this expose each and every one of them? Because all of them, from my understanding, sir, are vetted by the JBC.
That is
Is
right.
that correct? Okay.
That is right. The requirement is that you be a natural-born citizen. There's an age requirement, an experience requirement. But the court looked into the more subjective considerations, integrity. And you can lump that into competence, integrity, probity, independence. The court is now saying someone who doesn't have competence, integrity, probity, and independence can be subjected to a quo warranto proceeding. Everybody, not just the impeachable public officials, but everybody in the judiciary.
But they're saying she does not have possibly integrity or she constituted an impeachable act because she did not file her sal-ens.
Well, we can focus on, say, the majority and the dissent of Justice Carpio.
Okay.
The majority said failure
So
to
yeah, how
file
do you-
sal-en,
Okay.
right, shows lack of integrity. According to Justice Carpio, repeated failure to file sal-en might constitute culpable violation of the Constitution,
which is an impeachable act.
which is an impeachable act. I'd say failure to file sal-en is laziness, not necessarily integrity. I mean, someone who's not able to file the sal-en, whether repeatedly or not, is a lazy person,
Okay.
not very diligent, but at the same time can be a person of integrity. And that's rather clear, right?
So lazy siya pero may integridad siya. That's what you're saying.
Right, someone
Okay.
who doesn't accept bribes, someone who decides cases fairly,
Yeah.
right, can at the same time be lazy with certain administrative matters, right? And that's easily understandable.
But if it's a requirement of the JBC,
Right.
being lazy is not a good enough
Actually, it
excuse.
wasn't.
Yeah, I wanted to go there.
It wasn't. There was a time when the JBC didn't even require sal-ens.
Yeah.
If you were a private person, you'd never have a sal-en until you apply because you have to declare. So you'd only have one sal-en.
Pag-apply mo.
And so there's a higher burden with respect to public officials because if you've been in the public service for some time now,
You have to be filing your sal-ens.
you have to file sal-en. Well, I remember in 2016, the sal-en requirement was only for the 2 previous years, and so it was never the requirement of the JBC to ask for all the sal-ens except for the year when they replaced Chief Justice Sereno and Corona. And for that particular, they said, okay, we're going to accept substantial compliance.
Ganito lang, attorney. Kailan ho ba sinabi ng JBC that the sal-ens of the past 10 years must be submitted? Kailan ho ba talaga yon?
I think that was in 2012 only.
Okay. So if that's so, in 2012, that was the time she became Chief Justice.
Yes.
Okay. So are
but
you...
the important fact there is that the silent requirement is a flexible requirement for the JBC.
But who said it's a flexible requirement?
The JBC, because it's there are constitutional requirements, age, right?
Qualifications, no?
Natural-born citizenship, and then years in practice. Everything else, how to determine competence, integrity, probity, independence, is dependent on the JBC, dependent on the president who makes the appointment.
Final decision.
And so the JBC might say, okay, we're looking at competence. Show us your record of decisions, and then the public will be asked. Integrity, so many other documents. And SAL and integrity are two separate things.
Okay. But don't you feel somehow that there's been... the JBC was remiss in this? Because it's the JBC that vetted them and they passed it on to the president.
Well, look at it this way. If the JBC is not required to compel all applicants to submit SALENs, how can you now require of the applicant, right, to submit all previous SALENs?
So, but that would be the biggest argument also of former Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, which I'm sure that's one of the arguments they would have raised in the Senate.
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
Here's another thing, sir. You mentioned it because of the senators and the possible pressure. You have senators crossing party lines now. Members of the majority saying it seems that this was not a good decision by the Supreme Court, that impeachment should have commenced, should happen. Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Sani Angara, Senator Win Gatchalian.
Even the Senate President.
Even Senate President Coco Pimentel.
Right.
But what value would that have, you think, in the end?
It will depend on the Senate as an institution, what they would like to do.
Can they do anything still, sir?
Well, I've talked to some people in the Senate. They're thinking about certain things. Whether it will be effective or not, I really don't know, because the Supreme Court has already spoken.
Yeah, it's...
well, they are...
Can they file a resolution?
Well, obviously they can, because they are the Senate. They can file a resolution. They can express their opinion with respect to the decision of the Supreme Court. And what weight will that have with respect to the decision of the motion for the reconsideration? Yeah. And down the line, we really don't know. Note, for example, that the Vice President has already spoken. She said, I will correct this wrong if this happens. Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno could have stayed on up until 2030. That's a very long time. That means that theoretically, with the new president, she can file before the Supreme Court, and if that president recognizes her status as still the Chief Justice, then you have another live case.
Pwedeng bumalik, basically.
In theory, yes.
All right, former Solicitor General Florin Hilbay, sir, thank you so much for your time and sharing us your thoughts. Maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Maraming salamat.
This is The Source on CNN Philippines. When we return, we speak to Congressman Rodito Albano, one of the endorsers of the impeachment complaint against Sereno at the House of Representatives.